Okay, let's kick off week 4, day 3. What did we learn yesterday? How are we feeling about Netflix?
Uh, myself, yeah, I'm feeling fine. Some things are a little trying. I did learn that Netflix actually uses an image for that end series and then the title of the show.
Mm-hmm. Yep, sometimes it's easier to have a font be done by a designer and then inserted as an image than it is. Although that is not usually recommended because it makes it harder for accessibility in screen readers to actually read that text out loud. But as long as you have an alt tag on that image, it isn't quite as bad for the screen reader. Um,
So
so yeah, but definitely interesting to look in that inspect and see how it's done on the actual real site before you dive in and try and do it yourself. What else are we learning on Netflix? Are we feeling like we're making good progress? Are we feeling like there's certain concepts that are a little bit better practice now? Where are we at?
For me, I was a little bit behind in starting Netflix, but now that I have went over the homework a little bit more, reviewed some of my code on past projects, I feel a little bit better on trying to approach Netflix and like figuring out things a little bit better. So
Good, good. Yeah, it all builds on each other, and it's amazing how you feel like, wow, I don't think I'm at the level where I can build something like Netflix, and then you start doing it, and you go, all right, well, this might not be pixel perfect. This doesn't look just like the Netflix site, but it is pretty impressive of how much you can get done. Um,
So the one thing is it's coming together more with everything every day, but it's like I feel like when we know exactly what this is used for and why we're using this one specifically versus that one, things will make more sense. But
Yeah, so the good news is we're gonna start on our portfolio sites today. So something to look forward to is on Tuesday. Christy Pressler is going to come in, who is not only a developer but a UI designer. And she's going to talk a little bit more about the non-engineering side of things, right? The design side of color palettes and getting components together and thinking through mock-ups and all of that stuff. So she's got about an hour of content to teach, and then we're going to split into one-on-ones. And Christy's going to kind of help you through wherever you're at in your portfolio project. So we're going to start a portfolio today that I've built out. And then we're basically going to give you the option of saying, okay, you can either kind of code along with me and kind of build the portfolio that we're building, or you can choose to make it based off of the example that you're using, right? So you can go back to the one that you did your wireframe off of and say, well, I really want my portfolio to look like this, so this is what I'm going to try and build instead. So either path that you take there is going to be okay. But we're just going to get you started on the portfolio that I built. So we're going to do our grid out that we've done before, drawing the boxes. Then we're going to circle back and do our outline, and then we're going to dive into like, hey, how do we make a site from scratch, right? And so this is quite a minimalist site, but at the same time, I feel like it's got the right balance of content and also still being pretty. And so the reason why we want to get this done is because it's so important to keep that updated throughout your time in the boot camp, so that when you do get out, it isn't just, hey, I'm a boot camp grad. It's, hey, I'm a boot camp grad who has built all of these projects along the way. So today is going to be about getting kind of all the other sections done. And then tomorrow, we're going to dive into how to do an individual project page and get all of that laid out and get your project set up in a way so we can view the code and all of that fun stuff. So that's what's coming up. We are also going to be heading into our project week next week. So in addition to Christy coming in on Tuesday and us wrapping up our portfolio setup, Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to start talking about our capstones next week. talking about how we get started on a project idea, talking about the requirements for the capstone, kind of diving in. That is, if you felt like Netflix was throwing you into the deep end, wait until we get to the capstone. So you've got free reign there to build whatever you would like to build, but we're going to talk about concepts like minimum viable product, making sure we're doing our project planning. We'll have a submission set up so you guys can submit in what ideas you have, and then we'll start talking about them a little bit more on our one-on-ones coming up. With that said, I know a couple of you have asked for my Calendly link to schedule one-on-ones. I did put that in Canvas under the general resources link section. So if anyone was looking to schedule a one-on-one with me, hopefully that link will be just a little bit easier to find. With that said, any questions on Netflix? That assignment is still not due until Sunday. So if you don't have it done, you are welcome to continue working on it up until Sunday. What you submitted last night just gave me an idea of where we're at, where we need to spend a little bit more time and we're going to do that throughout this portfolio project to make sure we're really hitting home the concepts that need practice. One of the things we're going to be doing is using semantic elements a little bit more. We're going to start getting into a little bit more advanced layouts using Flexbox and getting things centered. So we're going to dive into some of those things during the portfolio. But anything else on Netflix that kind of popped up that you would like to recover or touch on? Go ahead, Larry.
Yes, so there were two things. I worked on my smaller computer, but I was kind of sizing it on my iMac screen, though, and it looked different once I switched to the two computers. My two play buttons, well, play and the more info button, they are mashing together. And how many of those, what do you call them? How many of those show images should we have in a row?
So
I was trying to put 12, but that's not feasible.
It's a good idea if you have access to Netflix to check to see how the Netflix site scales. It looks like they do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images across until you get down to a certain screen size, and then they only shove 5 in there. And then if you go down, it goes down to 4 and eventually all the way down to 3. So they've got it set up so basically those images just start disappearing once you get to certain screen sizes. So that's how they take care of that. And then it does look like their mute button and the rating kind of just shrink down based off of what screen size you're on. So, that's one thing you could do is you could just do media queries for your font size and get that to shrink down. But I wouldn't worry too much about getting that site fully mobile responsive, only because the Netflix site isn't particularly responsive either. So with that said, your portfolio site absolutely should be mobile responsive. And as we start developing that out, you're going to see some tricks that I use to make that responsive. So we're going to get it designed on the desktop size, and then we're going to say, hey, before we move on to the next section, let's go back in and essentially pepper in that responsiveness to make sure it does what we want it to do on mobile.
Okay. Another thing, I saw that they use what is it? VW units. I read about it in the thing. I forgot what it stands for.
Viewport height and viewport width.
Viewport, yeah.
I am very glad you brought that up because we are going to be doing a fair amount of viewport work in this portfolio as well.
All right.
So we will be. That is I'm glad you're queuing me up so well. You make it easy on me, Larry.
All right.
Did you just ask that? I don't know if you just because I couldn't hear it, but are we starting this in another folder, or did you just ask that question?
Yep, we're gonna be starting from scratch because I think it's good practice. So I will go through all of the folder creation steps, and yes, we will be starting from scratch on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on Netflix that you would like me to touch on either in a review or make sure we get to in we get to in the portfolio project. Okie doke. So let me pull up the outline for today. I don't think it's going to be any surprises, but it's worth looking at. So share screen, desktop one. So here's this one-on-one with Max scheduling link. So if you are looking to schedule a one-on-one with me, that should just be a little bit easier to find in Canvas now. The other note is I did not send out a poll for office hours, but seeing as every week has worked out for 5:30 to 6:30 on Friday, I'm going to just keep it there unless there is a big pushback and we need to decide another time. So group office hours will be Friday. Actually, I'm going to change that a little bit. 5:15 to 6:15 on Friday. Ariel, if you could shoot out a message just as a reminder in the Slack channel for that. Office hours are going to be 5:15 to 6:15. I do have somewhere to be on Friday evening, so we're going to move them up just 15 minutes. If you can't make them, that's fine. Attendance is always optional there. I've got no agenda. Same thing as always. If you've got questions, send them to me in advance in Slack, even if you can't make it. And then my Calendly should be up to date as well. So if you've got questions and want to schedule a one-on-one either during the week or on the weekend, there should be availability in my calendar to grab a 12, 25, or 55-minute slot. Always welcome to utilize those one-on-ones. Just have that time to continue building skills. And we're hopefully at the point now where those one-on-ones start becoming a little bit more technical, right? So the first one-on-one is like great to get to know you, understanding your background, all of that stuff. But from this point forward, a lot of those one-on-ones are probably going to be screen shares and code reviews and going over some concepts you may not have gotten. I can do some code examples on the fly. So if you're like, I really don't understand the grid, can you go over the Bootstrap grid with me? That's something that I can dive into and go from there. So reminder that one-on-ones are available to you. Ideally, you're doing them at least once every other week. But you can have up to an hour a week for one-on-one. So feel free to schedule those if there are any concepts you feel like you aren't getting. Also, a reminder that the link for the daily feedback is also in Canvas right here. And that is super helpful. Normally, we take no news as good news on daily feedback, but you guys filling that out is super helpful for me to make sure that we're hitting all the targets, you're getting concepts, all of that good stuff from there. With that said, let me pop open today's outline. And so we've got stand-up, we've got portfolio, boxing everything out, we got the portfolio outline, and we've got portfolio dev. So hopefully this is somewhat feeling like a familiar pattern to you. At the same time, this portfolio dev, we're starting kind of from the ground up, right? We're starting from scratch. We're starting from a site that you probably aren't familiar with. So as I'm going, if you're saying, how do you know how to do that? Or, it doesn't look like this over here, or why are you doing that? Always feel free to interrupt me, right? Throw a message in chat, throw a message at Ariel, and Ariel can interrupt me, or just come off mute and say, all right, Max, why are we doing that, right? So hopefully we're getting to the point where we're just starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with our code. So we are going to dive in here. I do have the example portfolio site linked here. And so if I pop that open, actually, before I do that, there is a link to the portfolio website requirements. You probably have seen these going all the way back to week 1. This is everything that I recommend is in a portfolio site, right? Because as an employer, when I go to someone's portfolio site, it's great to see a link to their resume, but what I really want to see is their projects, right? I want to see what they've built, and I want to see all of these details about the project. So I actually don't have all of these in the portfolio site right now, but by the time we are done with this project on Monday, by the time you get into Christy, hopefully we will have all of that updated, so when Christy's doing a review, she can give you individual feedback. So we are going to go through this. I'm going to pause while we're going through it, make sure everyone's coding along, has everything working. We are going to not necessarily slow it down from the Netflix pace, but do more of a group learn. And then also keep in mind that if you're like, all right, this is all good practice for me, but this weekend, I want to model my portfolio site off this other one that I already found, it's completely okay to take that extra step, dive into the project, and approach it that way. So if you want to kind of code along with me and have the same design as me, there will be plenty of opportunities to make this your own and make it feel a little different. But feel free to code along or say, no, I'm just going to go along for the ride and then I'll tackle the portfolio site on my own. So whatever you want to do there is completely fine, but I will try and take breaks after every section and make sure we're all together on the same page. So with that said, I am going to pop open this site. And this is a website that I made today, believe it or not. We did a little CSS animation there. We've got this click, scroll down, or we can just scroll down, and we've got a couple sections here. We've got a basic about section with a paragraph. We've got a contact form, and then we've got a starter for our portfolio and all the projects we've completed, right? So looks like a pretty basic site. I created it in a little over an hour, so I think you guys should be able to create it yourself in a day. Have fun. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to dive into all the project setup we've done. You can see we're using the grid still. Hopefully these are familiar, familiar concepts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to screenshot this. So first section should be pretty easy, but what we're going to do is we're going to try and go right to the outline step, right? So we're not going to necessarily box it all out, but we are going to go in and create that outline. So let me create that. And I am putting this link in the live stream. And I will also put it in the chat. And then I am going to pull this over here and also put it in our week 4, day 3 outline for our portfolio outline. Call it our div outline. And hopefully everyone has access to that. Okay, so to get started, let's do kind of, maybe let's not take the top-down approach to this. Let's start with our biggest pieces and then go down into each of those smaller pieces. So a slightly different approach here, but maybe it makes more sense to break this down. So for me, the biggest part of this site, and hopefully everyone has access to this if you want to pull it up. I did link to it in the example portfolio. So instead of going off a picture this time, we're actually going off a live website, and sometimes that's the best way to do it. Thank you, Ariel, for posting that. I realized I sent it to the wrong person. Okay, so first sections first. We've got our big header name area, right? So we're going to say that's going to be a section of the site, and we're actually going to use semantic HTML tags here in a minute. So we're going to say the section of the site, and that's just the name area, right? Then we've got another section, that's our about. We've got a third section, that's our contact. We've got a final section down here, that's our portfolio. And we've got our final section, which is our footer. Okay, pretty basic. From our name section, we've got a H1, that's going to be our name. We've got another tagline text, so let's just guess that that's going to be an H3, and we'll call that tagline. Then we've got a code snippet area, so we're going to call that code. And then it's going to be easy to forget this one, but we've got our down arrow, right? And that's what's, when we click on that, it takes us to the next section of the page. Okay, so just getting practice, breaking down our engineering. Our about section has the H3 headline and a p tag with the about copy. Whenever we say copy, we just mean text or paragraph. Copy is an industry term for saying, hey, this is some written piece, right? So if you ever say, oh, I need the copy before I can make that website, you're basically saying, hey, someone's got to tell me what words are going into the site before I can build the site out. Okay, then we've got our contact, which is a little bit more fun. We've got our H3 headline. We've got instruction text. And then we've got to break that down a little bit further, right? Because we've clearly got a grid system going on here. This is over on the left, this is on the right. So we need to revise that and say, hey, this needs to go into a row. And it looks like to me that this is taking up half the screen and this is taking up the other half of the screen. So we're going to say col 6 on that and put our instruction text in there. But then we've got another col 6 that's going to have our form itself. But now we got to be careful because we've got another 6 and 6 broken up in there. So what we need to do is say, hey, there's going to be another row, and that row is going to have a col 6 for our input for the first name, and another col 6 for the input of our last name. Right? Because these are inputs, I can type into them, but that's going to be a really key differentiator, is planning that out and saying, well, not only do I have a section going on here, I've got a row going on this big area here that's in 2 columns. But then
I'm sorry, Max, quick question, just
Yep.
like to clarify for myself. So when you say col 6, right? And so each section for the names is taking up like 6 parts of the actual grid, right? Is it because it wouldn't be like, for instance, 3 and 3, it's because there's a space in between them, so they each are, you know, based on that 12 grid system?
Yeah, so let's do
Okay.
this. Let's do, come on, computer, you can do it. I think that this is a good one to actually grid out. So what we're doing is anytime we have a red rectangle, we're talking about a row, right? So all of this is in one giant row. Then we've got a column that is taking up half the screen, and
Okay.
another column that's taking up another half of the screen.
Okay.
But now that we're in here, we're saying, hey, this is a row, this is a row, and this is a row. So we need another row in here so that we can split that up into 2 different pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to take another red rectangle and say now there's a row inside of our col 6 here. But because we're putting another row in there, that resets our 12. So now we are able to come in and say, well, there are really 2 columns inside of that row. One of them is here, and the other one is going to be over here. And inside those columns, we're going to have one final level down, and we'll make that green. And that's actually going to be the input itself. Okay, apparently we're going to make that light blue. So let's translate that to the outline, because that's the important part of this outline, right? Is not that I'm just steamrolling through everything, but we understand, hey, when I look at this mock-up, I can plan out this layout and understand how many levels deep I'm going to have to go for that. Because when we get into the code, it's going to be easier to get tripped up than when we're at the outline level, right? So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we've got this section. This section is the blue area. The H3 headline's the easy thing. That says contact. But now we get into the complicated part of, well, there's something on the left and something on the right. So before we can use a column, we've got to put that entire row in. So this row is going to contain all of the stuff over here, including the form. Now we're going to break it down. This is text on the left, and all of this is going to be text on the right. Because it's evenly split there, we're going to say the col6 is 1, and the only thing on the left is the instruction text. But now we've got a col6 over here on the right. Now we need to break that down. So the blue is our col6. Now, inside that col6, we're going to say, well, we need another red row here. And we need a row because we are doing 2 columns, right? We can never put a column directly in a column, just like we should never put a row directly in a row. There should always be row, column, if we're going nested down at that level. So what we're doing is we're saying, all right, that red row is right here. That's just our placeholder. But because we're putting in a row, when we have a col6 here, this is no longer trying to span the whole area. It's only spanning the col6 that it is in. So now we say, all right, in our red row, we need 2 more columns. So that's going to be our 2 blue areas here, and that's our col6 and our col6. But now that's all layout. So now that we've finally got our layout done, now we can actually put the actual element in, and that's going to be our input. And that's the light blue that we've put inside the blue column. We following that?
Yep, that makes sense. It's more easy to understand when I see like the colors. Okay.
Yeah, and some it can be it can get ugly in there, but breaking that down into, you know, just because I'm jumping to the outline step doesn't mean that you guys have to jump to the outline step. So if you decide, I don't want to do Max's site, I want to make my own portfolio site, I would recommend that you go through these same steps, right? Of go ahead and create your outline. And if you're feeling like I'm missing pieces, or I can't get my head wrapped around the outline in that structured format, go back to the boxes and draw the boxes, because those will definitely help you, and color code it, right? Because every time you go, oh, there's a red row there, let me make sure I've got my row on my outline, and then I'm indenting in another level to make sure that that's lining up. So the good news is that is as far as we go. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels deep on our HTML. That is not a crazy level to go, but at the same time, we don't go any deeper on this. So in here, we've got a email and a text area for the message. So the good news is we can kind of come out there, but we need to figure out, hey, all of this is in my col6. But instead of doing another row, because we don't need the grid system here for the email, we're just going to make this a div, and inside that div, it's going to get the email, and then we're going to do another div, and that's going to, I should say, input, and then another div for the input. This is actually going to be a text area, and that is for the message. And then we've got one final area, which is this send button down at the bottom. So we're going to do one final div, and that's going to be a button for send. So good news is that is the most complicated part of the site. We've got only 2 other areas to finish off. We've got our portfolio. So that is going to get an H3 headline. And then in there, we are going to do we've got a grid going on. So as soon as we see the grid, we say we got to do a row. So we're going to do a row, and that's going to get a call. And that call is actually going to have a card in it. So it may be hard to identify that, but this is a Bootstrap component that we're going to use that's going to do a lot of the styling for us. So that div with the card is going to have an image. It's going to have a card headline. It's going to have a p tag for the description. And it's going to have the button to open up the link. And that's going to be an A tag. It's actually going to be both. The A tag is going to go around the button. That will make more sense in a minute. The good news is because these are 3 in a row, what we're able to do is just take our column, get at the right indentation level, and paste it 3 times. Right, which is what we're going to do with our HTML. And then to finish off the footer, we've got a little lonely p tag in there for the copyright. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okie doke. So we've got all of that done. I'm going to keep both the outline up and the example site. And what I'm going to try and do is keep all of the style and visual away. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build out the layout. And once I got my layout done, that's when I'm going to go back in and start focusing in on the style. So I am going to go to my VS Code and let me...
Question.
Shoot.
Should we connect this to our GitHub?
That is something we are going to cover in week 6.
Got it.
Git is a, I don't want to say it's an advanced concept, but it's something that we, tried teaching in cohort 2 right at the beginning, and I think we overwhelmed students a little bit too much. So we decided to move that back. So we will be, it's a good idea to have a link in your portfolio site to your GitHub, but we will be covering in week 6 how you can create what we call repositories and start pushing your code up into GitHub so that that is a viewable place to check it out. I happened to put this on GitHub because it was an easy place for me to send you guys a link so you could see the site as we were working on it. But we will definitely be spending probably almost an entire day in week 6 getting you introduced to GitHub and familiar with those concepts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go to my desktop, my code, my week 4. I'm going to create a new folder. If you want to call this day 3, you can. If you would like to call this your portfolio site, that's fine. I think day 3 is actually probably better for me. I'm going to pop that open. I'm going to create a new file called index.html. I'm going to create a new file called style.css. Hopefully you guys know the drill here, so we're going to go quickly, and then I will take a break. I'm going to call this Max Matthews as my title. Obviously, when you guys are following along, feel free to use your own names, all of that. I'm going to add an H1, and I'm going to just say red. I'm going to go to my style. I'm going to add an H1. I'm going to make the color red. And then I'm going to go back to my index. I'm going to add a link tag. I'm going to do my rel style sheet. I'm going to do my href that is pointing to my style.css. I'm going to save. I'm going to go to my go live. That's going to pop open with my color red. So that's doing everything that I want it to. So I am then going to do this step so you guys can see my code with me. I'm going to put that in the live stream in there and in there. And I am going to pause and make sure everyone's got a red H1. Actually, I lied. I'm going to do one more step. We are going to need Bootstrap, so I'm going to go to Get Bootstrap. I'm going to go down to the CSS, copy that, paste that in above my style tag, and I'm going to make sure that my font changed from Times New Roman. Now I'm actually going to stop. And I know it's trivial, but just give me an idea. Once you get your project set up done, go ahead and vote in the Zoom poll. And I know it may sound silly, but if you're stuck on that one little thing of like, how did he put that template in or anything like that, always feel free to shout it out. We are learning so much content so quickly here, it's going to be easy to forget pieces of it. So if you do ever have questions, as always, you're welcome. You're encouraged to ask them. have 13 students in class and only 2 votes so far. So just giving everyone a minute to set up.
Can you show your HTML on the Zoom?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Six out of 13 people in. If you are stuck somewhere, stuck, Christy?
What for title? Are we putting our own name instead of yours or your
Yes.
name?
Yep.
It's okay for me to copy the Bootstrap link out of your live share.
Yep. Yeah, I went to getbootstrap.com and copied it from the CSS, but that is certainly not a link I would expect you to type in yourself. All right. Hopefully we're getting close. Anyone stuck anywhere before we move on? Going once. Going twice. It's okay to say stop. Give me another minute.
Hey Max, quick question.
Yep.
That tag .vs code, is that only showing because you're live streaming? I just want to make sure I didn't miss the creative folder.
I've got no idea where that came from. Yes, it is. You can ignore that VS code.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Okay, good, because I copied that too. And yeah, no, I'm just typing in the link and then I'll be all caught up with you.
Cool. All right, I'm going to keep going. It looks like we've got mostly everyone in. Okay. So, first things first. I said we're going to go off the outline, so let's use our outline. So, we've got a section going on, right? And we're going to try and break our site into sections, right? Instead of just saying a div, it's very clear this site is laid out into 4 different sections, right? Our name section, our about, our contact. So we are going to use, instead of a div, we are going to use a section tag. And we're going to throw an ID on that right from the get-go. And we are going to call that ID, let's call it intro. I don't know what we called it here. Let's call it intro instead. I think that's more descriptive. Okay, and in our intro, we can say there's going to be something that's going to have our name showing up big. Said H1. We said there's going to be an H3 with our tagline. You can put whatever you would like in there, just some short little description of what are you doing, what's your little summary. Then we're going to have something a little quippy, and we're going to use a code tag for that. And that code tag actually has some styling built into it, but we're going to be able to control it and target that a little differently. So let's call this JS for life. And then we're going to have a down arrow. Well, let's just see, before we get too far, let's make sure all of this is showing up. So I'm going to go here. Here's my Max Matthews, my aspiring full stack developer, my little code tag showing up. And we somehow are going to make that look like this. But before we do, I don't want to forget about our down arrow here. So to get our down arrow working, we're going to go to our fonts.google.com. We're going to go to our icons. Hopefully this is becoming familiar for you. We're going to go to the developer guide. No, we're not. Why does this link look different than normal? Icons.
I think Larry put in the chat that they updated the link. I'm not sure.
There is a different one that gives you support for outlined and rounded, but am I crazy or did they change this link today?
They actually changed it yesterday because when I went in there after class was over, it looked how it's looking now, and it was throwing me off. So I was like, forget it.
Terrific.
Maybe.
Where do you click?
Maybe knowledge.
Web fonts.
Scroll down now. I think.
Nope.
Maybe not.
Okay, let's try this. Developer guide.
Maybe select developer API on that side, on your left-hand side.
Get started.
Or that too, yeah.
Get started, yes, but where is my... Let's try the material icons guide. Oh, there we go. Okay. You know, sometimes we release new features and we think they're improvements and they're really not. This is one of those times. So what we ended up doing is we went to the developer guide and then we went to the material icons guide and then we scrolled down and that's where we got our Google Fonts link. So I'm going to copy that. Larry did put a link in there that basically changes the family name here so we can use outlined fonts or outlined icons instead. I'm not going to use outlined icons, but I'll touch on that in just 1 second. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to paste that above my Bootstrap. And then I'm going to test. So instead of checking off outlined here, I'm going to check off, they changed that too. There were other options there. Let's see what rounded does. And I'm going to do a search for arrow. And we get all of our options here. If you would prefer to use arrow downward or some other arrow here, that's fine. I'm going to just use this expand more arrow. And I'm going to take this, copy it, go to my section and paste it in. And then I just want to use, I don't want to use the rounded variant of it. I just want to use the basic material symbols. So I'm going to delete that out. Basically what you can do is you can, if you wanted to use a different variant of what that looked like, so you can, if you look like very closely, when I'm on rounded, you can see that those curves are rounded, but if I switch to sharp, it's just the sharp lines, right? There's no curve on the end of it. And then if I go to outlined, it's pretty much the same variant of that. So if Google is basically saying they have 3 different versions of them, and you can use any one you want, but when you do use it, you do need to pull in a slightly different font in your link tag to get that to work. So I'm going to throw all that out the window, and I am just going to use the default stock one that they have, the material icons, and then I'm going to take out the name from the classes just to match what I want. Scotty, I'm sorry, Tiffany, question.
I'm sorry. Once you got to the Google Fonts part, I'm completely lost. I tried going to Google Fonts, and I know you mentioned something about it had been updated. I have no idea where to go right now.
Yep, no problem. So we're gonna, neither did I, if that makes you feel any better. So
see, that's what I'm seeing.
So click on icons up at the top.
Okay.
Then click on developer guide.
Okay.
And then still this is not enough confusion. Then you need to go to the material icons guide. And then if you scroll down, the second code snippet has the link tag that you're looking for.
Thank you. Okay.
So if everything has gone well and you have a span added in with your material symbols, when you go back to your code, it's gonna freaking spite me and not work. This was literally working the other day, Google. Okay, let's try this. Yeah, give me 1 second because it's not working on mine. So if it's not working on mine, there's a good chance it's not going to work on yours. Add the variable font to your request to the head tag and your current variable axes to your icons using CSS. I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it. The current configuration can be loaded as a static font instead of a variable one. Okay. Scrap everything we just did. We're going to try this a different way. Sorry. Welcome to the life of a developer. Updates come out when you don't want updates to come out, and you've got to get your code working. Let's try this again. I'm going to delete out the link tag that we just struggled to find. I'm going to delete out the span that we just added, and we're going to rewind this all the way back to pretending like we did not have a link tag or Google Fonts or anything done there. I'm going to close out of Google Fonts, and I'm going to go to fonts.google.com. Instead of clicking on Developer Guide or any of those links, I'm going to go right to my icons, and I'm going to do a search for arrow. And that's going to give me my expand more. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to ignore everything going on at the top part of the sidebar that opened, and I'm going to scroll down to this link tag. I'm going to copy that link tag, go to my code, and paste that link tag in. Once I've got that pasted in, I'm then going to go back and copy my span tag, go back to Google, go back to my code, paste in my span tag where I want it to go, then go back to my code, and now I've got my little arrow showing up for me. I'm going to go over that one more time so you see it.
You saw the facial expressions. That's what that was.
So what we're going to do, I'm just clearing this out. If you have it working, you don't have to, but I'm going to fonts.google.com. I'm clicking on icons. I'm doing a search for arrow. I'm picking whatever arrow I would like to use. I'm going to use this expand more. I'm going to scroll down to the link tag under static icon font right here and copy that. I'm going to go back to my code, and I'm going to paste that link tag in above my Bootstrap link. And then I'm going to go back to back to the Google Fonts, copy the span tag, and put that in underneath my code hashtag that I put in, or my code little snippet. And if you've done all of that right, you should have the arrow showing up in your page. Let's do a poll to see where you guys are at. And if you've got a question, Christy, feel free to unmute, but we're not going anywhere until people are caught up.
Okay, so I'm on this. I don't want to move this. Wait a minute. I'm on the Google Fonts page.
Yep.
And I can see where it says static icon font, but I can't get down there. Like when I scroll, I'm scrolling.
Is your mouse over that area?
Yes. And I'm.
Right. Go ahead and share your screen. Yep.
So I'm right. So I can't. When I scroll.
Okay, so click in that area, and then use two fingers on. Are you on a mouse or on a? Okay, there you go.
Here it is. So I can just click this, right?
Yep. That copies it, and then you should be able to
Okay.
use it.
All right. Just oh, thank you.
No problem. So again, this is where we want to be. It looks quite ugly, but we just want our name showing up, our tag, our code, and then that little arrow down icon. So if you've got this arrow down icon showing up, that means that you have bested Google and all of their updates and have actually gotten the material icon working.
Max, quick question.
Yep.
For the Google fonts, when I get to where I'm getting to, am I copying the link where it says setup method 1 using Google fonts?
No, you're doing the static icon font.
Okay, and okay.
Which is right
that's
here.
That's for the arrow, right? I mean the actual like link.
No, the link is
what you're talking about. Okay, never mind. Completely disregard that.
It is before we were going to a different site to get the link. Now they have decided that you are going to get the link from the arrow itself.
Lord, okay. Yeah. All right.
I'm so happy that we ran into this issue because last night I was so lost trying to add an icon to my Netflix, and I just was like, yeah, no, I'll wait till tomorrow.
Well, I built. Oh, you know what? I cheated yesterday and probably copied the link from some other code when I built out my site today, and that's why I didn't notice the change. So that's all right. Things pop up. Hopefully, we're caught up. We've got 8 people in. Yep, go ahead, Danielle.
I'm having the exact problem that Christy was having. For some reason, I just can't get the expand more to go down to the static icon font. Like,
yeah, so click on click where the variable icon font name is, and then use 2 fingers to push down on the trackpad to scroll down. Or 2 fingers on the trackpad and push in the opposite direction, depending on how your scroll is set up. Are you using a mouse or the trackpad?
I was using the trackpad, and it's just not, like, even when I click inside of it, it's just not, it's not scrolling inside of that portion.
So are you familiar with using 2 fingers to scroll?
Yeah, I'm using 2 fingers, and it's just not working.
Share your screen. Maybe it's a window size issue.
Okay. Already there. Hold on, let me go back to this. Like,
okay, so
it down as far as use in Angular, but it won't go any further.
Okay, so scroll back up. Keep going up.
Like, and then it starts to scroll the whole page when I do, like, so try to go further up than that.
It's almost like you have the old version of the site. What happens if you click the refresh button? And then scroll up and pick or pick whatever arrow you want to use. Okay, now that's the right one.
I probably have it. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that makes sense. All right.
I don't know how you got to it, but you got to it. So that's what matters.
I'm sure it's going to work now. I think it's exactly what you're saying. I was on the older site somehow.
I do not pretend to know the inner workings of Google or why they chose to do that, but okay.
Thank you.
No problem. So I think we're good to keep going. Chris, do you have a question?
No.
Okay. All right. So we're going to keep trucking here. So now we get to the fun part, right? Let's go back to our outline. Our outline has an H1 and H3, a code, and the down arrow. And so if we look, we've got an H1, we've got an H3, a code, and a span. So instead of doing our entire site and getting all of our content in, we're going to focus in section by section and take a slightly different approach there. Yes, Christy.
I'm not muted. I hit Command V by mistake.
Okay.
How do I go back?
Command Z. That is undo.
Oh my God. Okay.
My small question is, what does the JS for life stand for?
Oh, that was just me joking around. Whatever you would like to put in there. So on my site, I said all around badass. You are welcome to put in whatever you would like, something technical, whatever you would like to put in there that's going to be more code oriented. That is up to you. Or you can leave it out if you want. But we are going to get this to look like this. But before we do, we are going to use a new tool. And that is coolors.co. So keep in mind that is COOLORS. There are two O's at the beginning. And when you load coolors and go ahead to agree to their cookies and close out of them trying to sell you anything, there is a start the generator button. And I believe I linked to this in the outline as well. So once you get into this, you can hit let's go and go ahead and close out of the tutorial because I'm going to show you how to use it. So this has generated a palette for you, right? And the whole point of a palette is just like when you go into into Home Depot and they have the palettes of different paint colors for you. The whole point of a palette is to find colors that are going to go well with each other. So you may look at this and say, green is my least favorite color. Please make it go away. So what you can do is if you hit the space bar on your keyboard, it's going to generate out another palette for you. And if you look at this and you go, oh, you know what? I really like this purple, so I'm going to lock this in. And I really like this yellow, so I'm going to lock that in. But then I'm going to hit space again. And what that's going to do is give you 3 new colors that are going to go with the 2 other ones you have. So you may say, oh, you know what? I really like this green, but this black is too black for me. So I'm going to hit space again, and it's going to keep on generating something until you have 5 colors that you like together. So the 5 colors that I played around with and kept on hitting space until I got it looking right were these 5. Right? And so you'll see this is going to start to line up with our site. We're actually going to use these hex codes as we develop our site to make everything line up in the colors that we want. But oftentimes it's overwhelming to go in and start coloring out your site and styling it all. And so having a preset palette where all of your colors are generated in advance can be a really helpful step. So you don't have to use this, and if you would like to use your own colors, that's completely fine. But you'll notice when you're looking at my site design, everything kind of goes together, right? And no colors are clashing, and that's because I did use this tool to generate the palette. There are some more advanced modes of this site. If you go to... no, not that one. There's a way to do, you can click on this little colorblind list here, and it will give you a breakdown of how this would look to a colorblind person based off of what color blindness they have. And there are also ways of generating like monochromatic palettes as well. I can't seem to find where they did that. This is apparently Google syndrome today of everything's going to break before I show it. But cool tool for generating your palette. Not one that you have to use. If you would like to use something different, you can. But the other cool thing in this is if you're like, I really like this, light gray blue kind of thing, but I want to see different shades of it to find something similar. You can click on the view shades button and actually change it up to something that you may want that's a little bit closer. And then if you use this drag, you can drag left to right and get it closer to what you want. So we're going to go back to my palette just so we have it. I'm going to feel free to generate your palette, come up with 5 colors that you like, lock in the ones that you do like, and keep generating until you find 5 colors that you really like. Okay.
How do you change the colors again, Max?
The space bar. With the coolers window open, that has to be your active window, but if you click on that, that should get them generating.
If you kind of got an idea of what colors you want already, how would I go about putting those colors in there?
Great question. So down here where it says the 01161E, you would have to have the hex code for the colors that you like. So if I go into my style.css in VS Code and I hover over this red thing, let's just get a random blue color. Oh, and that's going to give it to me in hex. Okay. Change the plans. If I click on... It was
actually there, I think, in the picker. If you scrolled. Oh, no, it wasn't. I lied. Quiet.
Okay. So down in this 01161E, if you click on that and then go to the picker, it's going to give you the coolers option. So you can go in and say, oh, I want this blue and maybe like a little bit darker. And that's the very ugly blue that I would like to use. You can then lock that in from there. And then when you hit space, it's going to keep that one color and keep going from there. So you can either come in here and put in the hex code if you know the exact color, or you can use the picker, or they've got all other kinds of options that you can use in here.
Thank you.
No problem.
And then Max, you said once you get your palette that you would like to use, what do you do from then? I've already locked in all the colors, but...
So what I would suggest you do is this link up in the top is actually storing all of your hex codes in there for you. So if you copy this, I would go to your CSS, go to the very top, paste it in there, and then hit Command/ to make it a comment.
Okay.
And that just makes it so, because I did this today, I had my beautiful palette. I was halfway down my site and I accidentally closed out of the coolers tab and I went, oh no, my beautiful palette, where did it go? So pasting it in your CSS, probably a good idea to go back and be able to reference it. Okay.
What link was that? That was just the website link?
Yeah, so like whenever you generate different colors, you'll notice up at the top, my URL is going to change when I hit the space bar. Every time I hit the space bar, it actually updates the link for me with whatever colors I have selected. So once you get your palette that you like, it's actually going to live update the palette URL to be all the colors that you actually want to use.
Where did you go to when you got to the site? Because I'm just on coolers. It says palettes and trending.
Yeah, so if you accept all cookies, close out of this pop-up, and then hit start the generator.
Oh, okay.
That's going to take you into this, and then you can just hit let's go and close out of the tutorial, and then you should be able to get in.
So what if you like only decided on like a few colors and you're not sure about the 2 other colors? Should I just pick anything for right now?
Yeah, you can pick anything for right now. As you have them locked in, I mean, sometimes I will go for 5 minutes on the space bar and then take a step back and go, well, maybe that's not too bad. And then come back and go, no, I don't like those, and keep going. I think I only used 4 of the colors, so I would only focus on getting 4 of them together. But you don't need to go crazy on this. You know, we can always go back and adjust colors down the road.
All right, great.
Christy, go ahead.
2 things. So this /* in CSS style, what is that?
That is a comment. So that's saying, hey, browser, ignore whatever is in here. This is for my own sake, not for your sake.
Okay. And then if I take this what we copied and pasted. I can't remember the name. Is it a URL?
Yep, the URL. Yep.
Okay, if I take this URL and I go back into coolers.co and I paste it in there, my colors will come back up, and then I can change them again if I wanted to, and then come back and
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't even have to go to coolers.co. You can just copy the URL, go to a new tab, paste it in, and it's gonna not only load in the generator, but it's gonna load in those exact colors.
Okay. I like
Why is my
colors
code
worked out right up front?
What, Nicole?
I saying once I copied and pasted the code in there, why did it all turn gray?
Because you need to comment it out and basically tell the CSS.
Oh,
hey,
I don't have the closing one. I see.
Yep, that will do it. Okay.
But hey, what? My bad.
Okay, so we're going to go back in here. We haven't done anything. We just got our color palette started, right? So first things first, if I look at my site, I can see that this is taking up the whole width of the window, right? So when I scroll down, I find some other sections. That's great. But I want my first section to be that nice, deep, dark blue and take up the whole space. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to say, hey, let's go target my intro section. So I'm going to say, let's target the section with the ID of intro. And in that, I am going to make the background color, and I'm going to come back into my coolers, and I'm going to grab my hex code here and copy, and then go back to my CSS code and paste. So I'm going to save. I'm going to come back to my code, and I'm going to not have anything work. Section, ID intro. That's weird. Okay, I just used my intro tag instead, and that's what it's gonna do. So that's okay. So now I've got it here, but we got two problems. One, I can't read anything anymore, and two, it's not taking up the full height of the window, right? It's only taking up the height of the content. So what I'm going to do, first one's the easiest one to fix. I'm going to make it white so I can read things again. And then I am going to say the height of my intro. Now, we haven't actually ever used height before because we've always had it based off of the content. But this time we're saying, hey, browser, I don't want you to figure out the height based off of the content itself. I want to set it. So we could set it to 100%. But now we're getting into some weirdness of 100% of what? 100% of the window, what happens when we add in more content, all of that. So instead of, now we could also say 100px, and that's going to say, all right, that's a fixed value. But we would like it to be 100% of the viewport height. The viewport is basically anything that first loads in here, right? So we're saying the viewport starts here, goes all the way down to here. And the viewport width starts on the left and goes all the way to the right. So we are going to say the height of that first section, that intro section, is going to be 100 VH. And that just takes it and blows it all up. And so now when we go to our inspect and we hover over our intro, we can see it's taking up the full viewport.
Max, quick question.
Yep.
Remind me again, which dev tool do we use so that we can do the inspect?
You just right click and go down to inspect, right click anywhere on the web page and go down to inspect. And that's going to pop open the elements tab for you.
Got it. Thank you.
VH is viewport.
Viewport height. And if you wanted that to be full width, you would use VW instead of VH. Yep.
Mine just didn't work, so I was just
go ahead and share your screen. Let's get it working. Take out the section. I had that in there and it was causing me problems. So if you take out the section and just target the intro tag instead, that should get it working. I don't have an answer to you as to why that isn't working, but that should fix the problem.
Thank
I think you don't put a space between the element name and the ID.
Ah, great pro tip. Learn something new every day. Thank you for that.
Max?
Yes.
When I click on go live, like it's not showing me what it's supposed to show me.
Do you have your file called index.html?
Okay, so I think nope, I do not. Oh my God, that's the problem. Thank you.
No problem.
And Max, we're not wrapping the section element in a container.
Great question. You're queuing me up for later in the evening. We're gonna come back to that.
Max, I'm having the same issue that Nicole was having, and I took the section intro out, so I'm not sure if I'll share.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen.
Okay. So that's what it looks like.
Okay. So go to your index.html. And you are missing the link tag to your style.css. So on 13, you should add in a new link tag that's got a rel of style sheet and a href to style.css.
Okay. And don't kill me. I'm grabbing this from where? So a link. I could just type it in, right?
Yes.
All right. You said link.
Rel equals.
Oh, that will help.
And then your href equals quote style.css.
My brain just farted. I'm sorry. href dot.
No, href equals style.css.
Thank you.
And then close out your tag there at the end. And save and hop back over to your browser and you've got your color.
Thank you.
Okay, good to continue. Any other questions?
Mine's not working either.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen.
Oh, I can hear that.
So I have the link tag.
Yep.
It's kind of far down.
Go to your style.css. And take out the space between section and intro.
Nope.
And then add in a color. So you're missing a color. You have color semicolon. So you need to do like color white. And then don't forget your £sign before your F7C548 because that's what's telling it it's a hex color. So save. And there you go.
Thank you.
Max?
Yep.
Pretty positive I just accidentally deleted my whole index.html file.
Can you hit Command Z and have it come back?
No, I don't think so. I still got my style.css, but I'm pretty sure I just deleted the HTML.
Okay, is it in your trash can?
Oh, I'm not sure. Hold on. I think this is it. Yes. How do I get it from there?
Just drag it from your trash can back into your VS Code sidebar.
Okay. All right. So let's try that. Okay, so do it from the trash can. Oh. Nope.
share your screen and I can do it for you.
Okay. 1 second. There we go. Okay.
So I'm going to request remote control.
Okay.
And we need to get rid of this one first because that's what's causing the problems.
Okay.
And that's the empty one. And then we're going to take this one and just drag it back in place. And there's everything.
Oh my God, you're such a blessing. I was about to lose my whole mind. Okay. Thank you.
Don't worry, I have lost many more lines of code than that before.
I'm just like, my whole mouth just dropped open. I'm like, I know it did not disappear. Okay.
Okay, so let's dive in here. Let's get some styling going on. So remember all of that deflect stuff of the Bootstrap.
Sorry, mine ain't working.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and share your screen. So when we're getting stuck on this, guys, this is when we need to do extra practice, right? Of putting extra time in for class because we shouldn't be getting hung up here on week 4. So let's go back in and debug, Wayne. Okay, so you're missing a semicolon after white because there's a squiggly on red.
Yeah, my bad. Save that, see if it works. Nope. What the?
Okay, go back to your code. You're missing a hashtag on line 7 before your color. So when we're using hex colors, the 627264, we need to put a £sign in there so it understands what kind of color format we're using.
Okay. No, we're good. What happened to...
So save, go back to your index. You've got 2 closing section tags. So 21, that shouldn't be there.
When did that happen?
Okay, save.
Yeah, we're good now.
Okay. Last chance for questions. Okay, we're going to roll forward. So I know we've only got 7 minutes, but I think you're going to be amazed at how quickly we can get this to look like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our styles. And the first thing I would like to do is get this laid out so it's not in the top left. So I'm going to go to getbootstrap.com. I'm going to go to the docs. I'm going to go down to the utilities. And I'm going to go down to my flex. And flex is going to let me... Yes.
Are you trying to share your screen?
Thank you for the reminder. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I go to getbootstrap.com. I click on docs. I go to utilities over on the left. I scroll down to flex. And this is helping me get all of my Flexbox Froggy, if you guys have done that. This is going to let me lay everything out the way I want it to without fighting, without doing like all kinds of percentages and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is, first thing I want to do, I'm going to scroll down, and this justified content is getting everything centered in my screen horizontally, right? From left to right. So what it's saying is I need to add a deflex, and what this is saying is 1, 2, 3. The third one down is the closest one to what I want. So I'm going to count down to the third one here, take those classes and copy it, then go back to my index and add a class equals on my section and paste that in. And that is going to move everything to the center. Okay, that broke things in different ways, but believe it or not, that's a step in the right direction. Now, speaking of direction, I'm going to keep scrolling down here until I get to the direction section, which is actually scrolling up. And what it's saying is use flex row to set a horizontal direction, which is the browser default. Well, we don't want a horizontal direction. We want everything vertical, right? When we look at this, this is vertically stacked on top of each other. It isn't horizontally stacked on top. So we're going to go down, and that's what this is saying. It's saying use flex column to set a vertical direction. Okay, flex item 1, imagine that's my name. This is my tagline. This is my little code snippet. So that's how we know we want to flex in the opposite direction. We don't want to go across. We want to go down. Whenever we're going down, we're going to use flex column. So I'm going to copy flex column, and I'm going to paste that into my class list. Go back to my code. Okay, well, interesting. We've got it now stacked on top of each other, and it's kind of centered in the right direction, but we need one more centering thing going on there. We need to go down to our alignment, and we need to align the items so they're right in the center, right? That's what we need to adjust. So we're going to take our align item center, copy that, and paste that in, and believe it or not, that's going to get everything centered exactly the way we want it to. So 3 steps that we took there. 4 steps. In order to use any of the Flexbox properties in Bootstrap, we have to add this dflex to it. So let's just add dflex. And what that's going to do is it just gets all of our items kind of in a row. All the flex is doing is telling the browser, hey, I'm ready for some more alignment properties coming. From there, we said we don't want them left to right. Oh, my color just left there. Okay, we don't want them from left to right. We want them going down. And so the property that we used there was our flex column. So we add in our flex column. Now we've got them going down. Okay, great, but now we need them to be in the center. So we are going to use our align item center. And what that does is it gets them in the center, but then we need them justified in the center of that page. I know I look like a demon right now. Sorry for my lighting. Not quite sure what's going on there. Screw it, I'll fix that at the break. So the last one we're going to add is our justify content center, and that is going to get everything centered in the page for us. So 4 classes that we used. Dflex is telling it, hey, we need to lay this out differently. We're using the flex properties. Our flex column is saying we don't want to flex things from left to right. We want to flex them going down. Our align item center is going to get them in the center vertically, and then our justify content is going to get them centered horizontally. Does that make sense? And we're adding all of that as a class onto our section because we want everything in that section to be laid out that way. And if you're wondering how I knew to use all of those, this is getbootstrap.com. I went up to the docs, I went down to the utilities and into flex, and this is telling me, hey, this is how I get things flexing in different directions. I really don't know what gods I've angered in the photography world.
Never mind.
What section did you go into for the column? Because I that's where I got thrown off.
So docs.
Mm-hmm.
Over on the left, I went down to utilities and flex. And then over on the right, they've got some links. Direction, justify content, and align items are the 3 that I found everything in.
Okay, direction.
I give up. I don't know. We were doing so well.
Listen, Max, while you have that going, all I'm having is like flashbacks to the triangles moving behind you of all of the beginning of cohort 2. So you should just leave it. It's fine.
I was going to troll you and switch it to that, but I don't know that I have that file on this user account. Okay, are we good on outline? Let's take...
Yes, I was gonna say, yes, I understand everything, but I had a different question, but I'll wait till break for it.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So if you have your page looking like this, you're good to go on break. We'll be back at 7:20. If you don't have it looking like that or have any questions, I'm happy to stick around for a couple minutes.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Super quick. So I have it kind of sort of looking like that, but my each space, so after my name, is all running in one line.
Okay, so you are missing the flex column.
Flex column. And maybe I just spelled column wrong, and I think I did. Thank you, Max.
No problem. Any other questions?
In regards to this, or?
Yes. Okay, sounds like everyone's good.
How should it be looking? What was your final result?
My monitor would let me get there like this. I'm gonna go on break unless anyone has a question.
Okay, I'm gonna try to ask my random question.
Sure.
So, okay, so I have an iPad as my monitor, and sometimes it just like goes out, and I don't know if it's because of Wi-Fi or whatever, it just stops. So most of the time, my stuff just ends up all on top of each other on one screen. But I have another iPad. So is there any way I could connect all three to have three screens, or is they only allow one screen?
That's a great question. I think they allow two screens now. That's a newer operating system update that allows that. But I think you guys should all have that update already. So it should allow you to use all three. And then the one suggestion I would have for you is if you plug the iPad into the USB port on your computer, the iPad is actually smart enough to route the video over the USB cord instead of routing it over your Wi-Fi. So you might have to buy like a USB-C to USB-A hub adapter for like $15 on Amazon, and it's fine to spend your stipend on that. And then you would be able to just use like a lightning cord to connect the iPad right into your Mac.
So that's the thing. So I have like a USB-C for all of my ports. So I just connected all like the chargers to each other. And yes, it did work for one, but it didn't work for the other. I can look on Google, but I just wanted to, I couldn't really find the answers. So that's why I thought I would ask you.
Yeah, no, I don't have an answer for you on that. I thought it supported two iPads, but I can't say for sure if it does or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Christy?
2 questions. First question, when we were in Get Bootstrap, so the whole line has, you know, like everything, and then it has like the ... We're not copying all of that. We're only copying
just the
verbiage we need.
Yes.
Okay, so in Prettier,
yep,
I have 2 yellow. Is yellow bad?
Is it still formatting your code for you?
I'm not sure. Let me look. Let me see if I can find. When I hit Command S, my code doesn't change. Sometimes I have to go out and come back in. I don't know why that happens. Let me see. No.
Okay, so share your screen. Let's take a look.
I got a keyboard and a mouse, and I swear, since I got the keyboard and the mouse, I have a less control than I thought I would. So here's this.
Okay, so you've got a class equals div class equals.
Class equals. And that is, so it should be section, intro, class. Oh, see, right. The copying of the div class from
Yep. So take that out and that extra, yep. And then.
And that's, so the yellow is not, the yellow is okay.
The yellow is okay because you've got your prettier, you've got rainbow tags turned on.
There's not two, there's just one. Let me see, Command S.
And that's probably running for you because your indentation's right.
Oh, okay. Bingo.
Okay, I'm going to take a break. I'll see you guys recording again. All right, so we're going to pick up the speed here just a little bit, but I want to explain why. I think a lot of you guys are getting hung up on syntax, right? Of I'm missing the semicolon, or, you know, I'm missing the curly brace or whatever. And that's because you're trying to follow along with me, right? So I'm going to say, everyone stop following along just for a moment. And the reason I want to address that, right, is because when you're out in software development, you're not going to be following along someone else. You're not going to be playing back the video. You're going to be doing it yourself, right? And you're going to be taking the time to catch the syntax errors or say, hold on, I'm going a little too fast here. I need to take a break. I need to catch up. I need to get there. So what we're going to do is everyone pause on following along with me. I promise there's going to be plenty of time at the end of the night. Instead, what I want you to be doing is stopping me and asking questions about why are we doing that, or what is that concept, right? Because there will be plenty of time at the end of class to catch up. And then tomorrow at the beginning of class, we're going to catch everyone up and have those starter files. Then we're going to do a little bit more of it, right? So the goal is tonight, in the next 20, 30 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to get the first section done. And we're going to get the we're going to get the about section done. And then for homework, the goal is for you guys to try and get the contact section done and catch up on anything that you didn't do in class. So I'm going to go through, and I still give me speeding tickets. If I'm going too fast, if this is not sinking in, definitely let me know, but do not actually try and code along at the moment, because I think a lot of the syntax issues you're running into are not just, oh, I'm struggling with the syntax. It's that following along with me is causing you to miss on syntax issues, right? And so syntax is something that it just takes time to learn. And it's just going to be practice, right? You guys know what the syntax is. You just need the time to be able to get it in and get it done right the first time. So I'm going to say, everyone pause on following along. We're going to get a couple sections done, and I'm going to teach, not at my normal pace where we go and take a break and go and take a break, but I'm going to just go through and explain the concepts as I'm doing it, or what I'm coding out. And that's really the mindset that we want to get into, right? Is, okay, if I were to start this, to have this site for the first time and I've never seen it before, without Max's help, would I be able to go in and do the outline? And once I get the outline done, would I be able to go in and get that first section done? And once I get the section in, would I be able to go in and get the icons working, right? And if I can get the icons working, can I go in and start doing the styling? And so that's what I want you guys to pick up on here, right? Is this a new concept? Are we layering in concepts? And are we understanding why we are doing this next step? So it is going to be a little bit faster. I still want you to stop me. I still want you to interrupt me. But we're going to try and do it not with coding along. And then we're going to leave plenty of time at the end of class. Is that cool with everyone? Any questions on that? Okay. So, we are going to dive back in. So, we've got our color down, and that's good, and we've got it the right size. But when I go back, obviously this is much bigger, right? So let's start targeting that. So in my intro, I've got my H1 for Max Matthews. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to target my intro, and I'm going to target the H1 inside of my intro, and I'm going to say my font size is going to be 96 pixels. Come back over, make sure I'm on the right tab, already have it bigger. Great. Now, I also have a nice little fade in so that when I refresh this page, I get my name fading in. So this is actually going to be a new thing that we haven't covered yet. And this is CSS animation. So before, you had to use JavaScript to do all of this. And JavaScript is great at interactivity, but it's not great at layout and coloring and styling. That's what CSS is great for. So in order to get our element to fade in there, we're going to use a couple new CSS terms. So believe it or not, there is no fade in built into CSS. We actually have to use keyframes to do this. And basically what a keyframe is doing is saying, here's where I want it to start and here's where I want it to end up. So what we're going to do is we're going to define this thing called keyframes, and it's the little @ sign. And I'm going to say fade in, right? And fade in is the name of it. And then we need to give it two properties. We need to tell it what it's going to fade in from and what it's going to fade in to. And the two properties that we're going to use there are opacity, meaning it's going to start out, and where do we want it to start out? Start it out at 0, and then we want it to get to an opacity of 1. So keyframe saying, hey, this is a new property. We want to define some kind of animation. The animation we're going to call it is fade in. We're going to tell it where it starts, and that's going to start from an opacity of 0, and it's going to go to an opacity of 1. Great. Now we've got fade in defined, but we've got to tell it to use that fade in. So what we're going to do is we are going to say, for our intro H1, we want to use an animation on that. And the animation we're using is going to be fade in because we just defined that right here. And the style, there are different speeds that we can ramp into that fade in. And the one we are going to do is called ease in. So basically start here and ease up to an opacity of 1. And then the last thing we need to tell it is how long is it going to take to animate that. So I could say 10 seconds there. And when I go back into my page and refresh, we're going to have a very nice, slow, dramatic fade in of my name. Okay, maybe that's a little too slow. So let's start it with 1 second. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm liking that. I'm going to switch back over here. Looks like this sizing is good and my code sizing is a little off. So let's fix that. I'm going to target in my intro. I'm going to target my code element. And I'm going to make my code element a font size of, let's say, 36 pixels. Okay, that's looking good, maybe a little too big. Let's drop it maybe down to 32. All right, that's great, but looking here, we've got some spacing going on. We've got some breathing. So let's target that. We're going to say in my intro, target my, I'm going to go back to my index, and I'm going to look, target my H3. And in that H3, add some space to the margin at the top of 20 pixels and add it to the margin on the bottom of another 20 pixels. Okay, we're making good progress. Now that's breathing, that's feeling right. But when I refresh, I got my name fading in, but not these two. So when I come back to my Max Matthews and I refresh, we get this nice build in, right? It makes it feel like this website is animating in, which it really is. So we need to use this ease in a couple more places. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, on my H3 element, I would like to use an animation name of fade in. So we're going to save that. We're going to come over here. We're going to refresh. And now that added in our fade in, but we want a little bit more control of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, don't fade in until a second after the page loads. Just fade that in nice and slow on a delay. Okay, that's great. Now we've got our code that we've got to target. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. That was working a little too smoothly. I'm going to refresh. We don't get our fade in working on that one. Totally on the wrong tab there. We don't have it working yet, and that's because we need to tell it where to start at here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, this is going to have an opacity starting at 0. And now when we come over here, we still don't have it quite working because we need to add even more properties here. We need to say, how long is the animation going to run for? And we're going to say that's going to run for 2 seconds. So now we have it fading in. It looked like it was working, and then it disappeared. Well, that's because we need the one final property in here called animation fill mode. And what that's going to do is it's going to say, go forward in the animation, and when you reach the end of it, don't end the animation. Don't make it go back to 0, make it just stick there. So, now, we get our delay, we get our fade in, we know how long it's taking. Let's do a quick run through of all those properties again. Up here, we use this shorthand. We said animation, we said fade in, which is matching our keyframe down here. We said ease in that animation and make it last for 1 second. Now, we could have taken a similar approach on this other element, or we can not use the shorthand and break it out. So down here, this animation fade in is still matching this animation shorthand up here. However, we had to say start out 0. We don't want you actually loading this in when the page first loads. We want to wait this animation delay. We want to wait a second and then have it fade in. And how long do we want that fade in to last? Well, we made our shorthand last for 1 second up here. Down here, we're just making it last for 2 seconds. So my name's going to come in a little bit quicker, and then my tagline is going to come in a little bit slower. And then the last thing we're doing here is saying, hey, move forward in the animation, but when you hit the end of the animation, don't go back to the initial state, which is the opacity 0. Just leave it at the end of the animation. So that gets our name coming in, and that gets our tag coming in. Last thing we need to do is make our code come in. So the good news is we can take most of this, copy and paste it down here, and then we just want to adjust our delay a little bit longer. So let's make that 4 seconds. So now we get our name, we get our aspiring developer, we get our JS for life.
Did you have another line in there? I feel like you had more words in there, no?
No, for the tagline, I just have that. For the H3, I have a little bit more.
And the CSS, does it matter which order you put the opacity, animation, name, and delay, and so on?
Anything inside the code block does not matter as long as you don't have the same key twice, which you shouldn't have anyway. Ariel, can you tell me where you're caught or where people are confused?
No, I was curious. Up at the top of your CSS, you have the section intro.
Yep.
There was a couple issues that were brought up before. Mine is the same way. I can't have section in there. I just need to call on the ID for intro. Is there a reason that yours is different than compared to like how we have it if we're following the live stream? Or is there a reason you have it called out in that section for that intro that you can explain?
Yes. So this is actually something that Doug taught me tonight. So what we're doing is, if you look at this selector, right, which I know is not the selector you're asking about, but it says intro and H1, and I've got a space between it. So basically that's saying go find your intro element, and once you find that intro, the ID intro, any H1 inside of it should get this styling, right? Which is why our name is showing up nice and big. Well, if we go back to our index.html and look at that, that makes sense. We've got our ID intro, and what we want to do is target the H1 inside of that. Well, in my section intro, initially, I had a space here. And what this space is telling our CSS is to go look for a section, and then go look for the intro tag inside of the section. So if we come back to our index.html, it finds my section and is then looking in all of these elements for an ID called intro, and it can't find it. So what we need to do instead is say, go to the section and find a section with the ID of intro. And so in order to do that, this space is saying look inside of the section for an intro. We don't want to look inside of it. We want to look for a section with the ID of intro. We don't want to look for the ID of intro inside of the section. So if we take that space out, that's what's going to get our color back and make that apply. Now, the follow-up question to that is, well, if that's causing problems, why don't we just target our ID intro? Well, as you can see, that does the same exact thing. Because IDs are unique, we theoretically should not have another ID of intro anywhere on our page. So theoretically, this CSS is completely fine to use. What it is doing is it's preventing us from saying if we accidentally use the ID of intro anywhere else on the page, if it's not a section tag and I had it still written out as this, then if we accidentally used our intro anywhere else on the page, it wouldn't apply that CSS unless it was an ID intro on a section tag.
Okay, so for anybody that's having that issue, obviously you need to take the space out of it as far as syntax, but you're
just delete the section.
Okay, but you are targeting that specific intro in that section for anybody who's looking for that. That is specifically what you're targeting as far as that is your section, your ID for that section.
Yeah, so because there's no space, it's saying target the section and then only target sections with the ID of intro in it. So if we added a space here, what you're then telling the HTML is go target something in here with an ID of intro. So if we look in our CSS and we have the space, it's saying go find the section and then go find the intro. But if we take out this space, we are then saying go find not only the section, but make sure the section has the ID intro on it. Any other questions before we keep going? That is exactly the kind of question that I'm hoping that we get tonight.
And heads up, anybody who doesn't want to stop Max on Roadrunner, just slack me the question. I'll take the brunt of him. I'm not scared of him, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, Ariel can take me.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead, honey.
Oh, I was just going to say, so just to make sure I understand that we weren't following along and basically we're going to do something like this, but our own now.
Not now. We are going to do 10 more minutes of this just to get the last of the styling done and the next section, and then you are going to have the rest of class to catch up.
Got it.
And do your own version of it with your own name and background and colors and all of that.
All right. Thank you.
Max, I just had a quick question, kind of related, but kind of not. Mm-hmm. So the animation, oh, never mind. I see that you added it. Okay. Because I know you were talking about the animation delay, and then I was going to ask you, is that the same thing as an animation duration? Because I was going through the exercises on the homework last night, and I was a bit confused.
Not the same thing. So the animation delay is saying how long do we wait until we start running this animation? The animation duration is once the delay is done, how long does it take to run the animation? So what we're doing is if I refresh this, the delay is what is causing the animations to not all run at once. It's making it look like each 3 of those are running when the other one is done. It isn't actually doing that. All it's doing is it's saying, well, load this in, but there's no animation delay there. And then wait a second after the page first loads, and then load in the H3, and then wait 4 seconds, and then load in the code element. Right? So these aren't actually chained off of each other. They're all running right when the page first loads. So we're staggering that. We're saying load this animation in right away, then load this in a second after, and then 4 seconds after the initial page load, go ahead and run this one. So that's controlling the when they run, and then this animation duration is controlling how long that fade in takes from start to finish.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And then this animation fill mode is really the only one left that says after the animation is done running, just leave it there. Don't make it go back to the way it was before the animation. Let it kind of like pause it at the end of the animation.
And then completely, obviously not related to what we're doing right now, but isn't there another animation fill mode that's like an infinite? Is that when it just keeps going, or is that in regards to duration?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know what all the properties are of fill mode. There's forwards, backwards, and both.
Okay.
But the animation duration or the animation repeat, there may be properties for that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on animations?
You think we could get notes for that, or should we?
So I'm not going to point you at notes. What I am going to point you at is we're going to do a search for CSS animation and do just add W3 schools at the end, because W3 schools is the go-to resource. And what that's going to do is it's going to have all the properties that I used, and then it's going to go through and show you how we did the keyframes. This one is doing a keyframe from one color to another, and it's going to break down all these properties. So I will take that and put that on...
yeah, you could just drop it in Slack too, or whatever.
Yep, I will add it to the daily outline for CSS animations. And add that there, and also add that
I might
to...
have missed this, but is there a reason for the space between margin and opacity? Sorry.
The space between where?
Space between front and there's a space in between. There's a line in between.
Are you talking about margin bottom and the opacity that like in the intro H3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a reason for that.
No reason.
Okay.
Just being sloppy.
Weird.
Sometimes people will break it up. So they'll say, hey, because all of these properties are related to the animation, I want to leave them in kind of like a separate area. In CSS, the browser will ignore any extra line spaces in there. So if you wanted to break them up, you could break it up like that, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's not going to impact the browser at all.
Okay.
Good question. Any other questions for animations?
Yeah. So I need to check if my keyframe is properly intact and everything else, because
so we will have time at the end of class to circle back and make sure that you can get your code working.
Okay.
Any conceptual questions on what I did before we move on?
No, we're fully there.
Cool. Okay, so the other thing that I would like to work on is I've got my arrow down at the bottom here, right? And that looks like that's positioned exactly where I want it to, right? I basically want to say I want that down at the bottom of the screen, but you'll notice if I grab the corner of it and drag it up, my arrow comes with me, right? That arrow is staying relative to the bottom portion of the screen. So that's exactly how we're going to use that in our CSS. So we are going to grab, there's a span here, but we don't have any ID on it, right? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add an ID of down arrow. And then in my style.css, I'm going to say, hey, in my intro code, go target the down arrow. And we need to do some positioning on that. So first things first, my down arrow is teeny tiny. We would like that to be bigger. So all I need to do is drop a font size in there of, let's say, 75 pixels. Now I've got my nice big green arrow. But it's still relative to the bottom of this content, and it kind of ruins the whole animation, right? Because based off of where it is, you know there are going to be other things animating in. It would be nice if we could just push that, make it relative to the bottom of the screen. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say, hey, we're going to display this, and we're going to use a new property. I'm sorry, not display. We're going to position this. And I don't think we've used position yet. We're going to position this absolute, and it is absolutely going to be based off of the window. right? We're basically saying don't lay this out based off of all the other content, where the other content is. We're going to say this is absolutely going to show up in one spot. And the place that we would like it to show up is at the bottom of the screen, but 30 pixels off the bottom of the screen. And so now when we come over here, you notice our arrow is down at the bottom, and that is doing exactly what we want. And if we drag up our DevTools, you see the arrow comes up with us, and we drag it down, and it's staying exactly where we want it to. Okay, so I am going to just grab all of my animation code and just drop that on my down arrow and up my delay maybe to 5 seconds. And now we get our total beautiful animation with our arrow coming in. Okay, I'm going to keep going. One thing that I have is the color on this is a little different. I want to use my color that I'm using from my palette. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to grab this color, and I'm going to add that on there and say my color is now going to be that. And the other little thing I'm going to do is I'm going to target my intro and my down arrow, and I'm going to add a little hover effect on that. So all I need to do is my little colon there, and then I can say, hey, my color, when I hover over it, is going to be, let's pick this one. So I'm going to drop that in, I'm going to save, I'm going to come back over here, I'm going to make sure I'm in my right tab. Now when I hover over it, I get a little different color pop going on. Okay. So one last section I want to do is the About section. Hopefully this is going to be a quick one. So I'm going to go back to my index. I'm going to identify I'm out of my section, and I'm going to go back to my outline and make sure our section is just going to be an H3 and a P tag. I promise this one is not going to be as complicated as the one above it. I promise you on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new section. We're going to add an ID on it called About so we can target it down the road. We're going to add an H3 and say About. We're going to come over here, scroll down. Oh, no, wrong page, Max. I'm going to scroll down, and here's my About. It's ugly, it needs styling, but at least it's showing up in relatively the right spot, right? Because we know this is where it should be showing up in the final version. So I'm going to, while I'm here, I'm going to add in a little P tag. And I'm going to say Max is the best teacher ever, but he should probably add more text here so we get that it's a paragraph. So now it's showing up there, but that's still a long way away from this styling. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our style, and we are going to target actually all sections. Doesn't matter what ID is on them. And we're going to say all of those sections should have a min height of 30 VH. And basically what that's saying is if you need to go bigger than that, if there's more content in there, you should go bigger. But what that's going to do is make it so we've got breathing room in there, right? It's going to be 30% of the viewport height, at least to that spot. Okay, now two hopefully obvious things. We've got a background in there, and we've got our text color white. So we can just start chaining off of that. We're going to say, hey, go to our About section, and our background color on that is going to be this hex color I'm pulling from colors. And the text color is going to be white on everything. So I come back. Okay, now that's in there. Now, we also see that there is some padding going on the side there, right? So all we're going to do is say, hey, for that whole section, use 30 pixels of padding. Now we brought that in. And now the last thing is, this is nicely centered right in the middle, right? But we've already been through centering. We already know that we can center things using our deflex and our column and our align item center. So all we're going to do is borrow those same classes. We are going to say, hey, we are going to deflex, and I'm going to save that, and now they're on top of each other. But we've already been through this. We know how to fix when they're on top of each other. We need to tell it, hey, we would like to flex in the flex column direction. Okay, well now that got it back to where we were, but because we have flex enabled, we can now also say, hey, justify the content in the center of that div. And now we have that exactly where we want it. So, what the last thing we can do is the whole point of this arrow is that when you click on the arrow, we would really like it for it to scroll down to that about section. So in order to do that, before I go into that, any questions on how we got the about working? Are we feeling like, hey, these properties are coming back up? We're understanding color. We're understanding the steps.
No question about that part. My only question was, well, more of like a comment. So can you go back to the index?
Yep.
So we wouldn't put like the align item center in the about part, right? Because that would actually make the P tag, it would make it literally in the middle of the page.
Yeah, so whenever we flex, we tend to flex on the parent because the parent is telling the children where to lay out.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Hey Max, I got a question, and it wouldn't be directly related to this, but it would be related to Netflix. So could I use that flex class in that like moving my icons over in the main show?
Yes. So you do need to make a decision. You often don't use grid and flex together unless you are trying to get layout done inside the column itself. At that point, you can do that. So you need to make that decision, right? Of do I want to lay this out using flex, which is going to give me probably the most flexibility, but is also going to be a little trickier to do, or do I want to use the grid system? And so that's kind of like, obviously we can use both in the same site. It's not like it's a decision that needs to be made site-wide, but it is something that you decide of saying, okay, maybe I want to use the grid system to get my text on the left showing up where I want it to, and the text on the right showing up, at least on the right side of the screen, the TVMA and the restart button. But then maybe I want to use flex inside of that right column to get it pushed down to the bottom.
Gotcha.
And that would be a great use of flex, right? So you don't want to be using flex and columns side by side, but you can use flex inside of the column itself.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, and I love seeing you applying that to previous ideas. Okay, anything else on this? I just want to drop in my A tag, and then we're done for the night, and you've got 30 minutes to bombard me with any questions. But any conceptual questions first, before we get our drop-down working. Okay, so last thing I want to do is, we've got our span tag in here. All I need to do is wrap this in an A tag, which stands for anchor. We're going to anchor this to another section of the page. And the href we're going to put in is that pound sign, because we know pound signs line up with IDs, and we're going to say about. We are then going to take our closing A tag and say we want our entire span tag to be in the A. I have no idea why it formatted like that. Okay, that's better. Like it formatting like that either. Prettier, do your job. Okay, that's better. So we come back over here, I refresh, I wait for my animation, and is that the right color? Yeah, it's just close. If I click on that, that now moves us down to the about section. Now the other problem is that is now off-centered, and I don't know. It may be because my down arrow hover, that is all getting applied to my ID down arrow. So let's see if we move this ID up to the A tag. Oh, that broke a lot of things. But it is positioned in the right spot. So now, if we just make a couple more adjustments there, basically we're going to take all of these and say, hey, this down arrow is my link. So in the down arrow, go find the span inside of it, and that's what we want to be adjusting. And it's still off-centered. I'm going to fix that a different way. Ignore everything I just did. All we needed to do was add this in an A tag. Our href is telling it where we want to go once we click on it. And then our ID should remain on the span itself. So all we did is wrap this in an A tag. We keep our span inside of it. That makes our arrow show up. And then when we click on our arrow, it's going to scroll us down to that about section of the page. Okay, we're going to stop there. Your homework assignment is to not only catch up to this point, but also to get the contact section of the page done. You do not need to do the portfolio section. You do need to get the contact section done by tomorrow. With that said, there is not going to be a homework assignment for it. We are only going to turn this in at the end. So the goal for this evening, get not only caught up to here, but also get caught up to this contact section. Get your practice with your grids and your rows, practice adding another section in, and try and get caught up to there. Do not submit this assignment until you've got the whole page done, which will probably not be until Sunday or even beyond that. But you should be able to catch up and also get your contact working. The form not working, but coded out and laid out properly. I will share this code, although I will say, please, actually, you know what? I'm not going to share this code. You should not be going line by line. Instead, what you should be doing is thinking about what I did and trying to follow those same steps. So thinking about the animation, thinking about the keyframe. When you can't get it working, don't go back to the video, go to the resources, see if you can read the documentation, see if you can get that working. And before you guys even have a chance, I am going to stop my share so you can't even copy it from there. The point of the exercise tonight is thinking like an engineer, thinking step by step through this, using the outline, which you do have, to build out those things, then layering it in. Keep on going back to the example site. See how the example site is loading it in. See what the styles are different. Then go through and animate through that. Go step by step. I know it seems harsh, but you're not going to have me in your day job. You're not going to have me taking you through step by step of this process. So you remembering what those steps are the point of this site, because this site is easier than the Netflix site. So I'm still going to be here to guide you. We're still going to take time now, and we're going to take time at the beginning of class tomorrow to get you caught up on any of the concepts. But going through is going to be the, going through and figuring out what steps to take are the important thing. And if you get stuck on that and have no idea where to go next, unmute your mic, share your screen, and we'll figure it out together.
Just a quick question for you, Max.
Yep.
I know you had touched on it earlier in the in it, but I just wanted to verify. So in the intro section, right?
Yep.
Under the H3 tag where it says code, I'm sorry, what specifically would, I know we're doing it about ourselves, but what is it supposed to pertain to though?
Something particularly technical, something that you're like, I heart HTML, or,
okay.
Mac fanboy, or, anything that you would like. Okay. You could even write some CSS in there of, favorite -color : pink, or anything like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Don't worry, the video will be available tonight. It's not like I'm pulling out all lifelines from you guys, but thinking through step by step, right? Of, all right, we got this project started. What did he just go over, right? And so this might be a lesson for next time we go through at this pace of just jot down notes, right? Just remember where we were at. But start at the top, work your way down, identify each thing, and step by step, you'll realize you get a lot closer to that finished product.
Hey guys, if anybody needs help too, we can do a breakout room. So if you need it, just Slack me or put it up in the chat. I mean, Max will answer questions, but I'm less snarky, I promise.
I'm aware that I just drove you all off the cliff of comfortable, but I still am here to answer questions.
You wanna see mine? Wanna see mine?
Yep, go for it.
All right.
All right, looking good.
You click on this, it goes down there.
Nice. So if you refresh, do you have your animations working?
Yes, they are working. Let's see.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Very, very good. The last thing that you're missing is that about section should just be centered in that green box. Should be centered vertically.
Vertically, okay. Centered. Okay.
Yeah, so it should be, instead of being up here, it should be kind of down in this area here.
Okay, I will figure that part out.
There is proof that you can catch up. There is proof that just because you were off the cliff does not mean that it is too late.
Right.
Yeah, I think I got stuck at like the arrow button, enlarging my arrow button.
Are you stuck, or do you just need a couple more minutes?
I mean, I could share my screen.
Sure, go for it. So the reason I ask that question is, are you stuck, or do you need a couple more minutes? Is not only from a teaching perspective, but it's also from an engineering perspective. You are going to be coming out of here as junior developers, right? There are going to be a lot of things that you don't know how to do, but that's the important question to ask yourself, right? Of, do I need to ask for help yet, or do I just need a little bit more time to work on it? Because sometimes you'll work on it for 4 days and then go ask for help and it's a 2-minute thing. So that's always the right thing to balance, right? Of, all right, am I just going to spend a couple more minutes and then am I going to have this breakthrough moment? Or do I need to recognize that I've spent a while on this, I still don't have it, and I need to ask for help? And it's completely fine to ask for help, but you want to think through that question, right? And whenever you have that question of, am I stuck or do I just need more time? Okay, so let's see your code. Okay, so your ahref is probably getting in the way of your span tag. So if you just comment
when you
out,
added that, that's when I kind of got sidetracked. So that's why I stopped that.
So comment out your 29. So just command / there, and we'll come back to it. Okay. And then save, and let me see what you've got going on in your style tag. I'm sorry, in your style CSS.
Yeah.
Okay, so save that. You actually have the intro down arrow going on. You just don't have that ID added to the span. So you see that ID down arrow that you have?
Yeah.
Copy that and just add that ID to your span tag in your HTML.
Okay, so just copy this whole thing?
Just the down arrow, because the intro you already have.
Oh, I got you.
And then go to your index.html and add that ID to the span for the expand more. So the span class material symbols outlined, that's your actual arrow, right? So what you need to do is add an ID equals to that span tag. Yep, you're in the right place. Just ID equals, and then paste, and take out that pound sign. And what you're basically doing is saying, well, I've got my down arrow. It's already in my intro section. I just need to have a hook in my HTML that I can hook into in my CSS.
Okay.
So save that and take a look. And there you go.
All right.
So your about section needs a little work. It should be over on the left and it should be centered in there. But if you pull up my example site, that will give you a little context in terms of what it should look like.
The example site was in Canvas?
It was in the daily outline. So yeah, you can get to it through Canvas.
Okay.
I have something to say if you finish.
Yep, go ahead.
So when you said stop, I stopped, but I was watching. So my question is, the best thing for me to do is to go on your example, like your website, and use the inspect to the best of my ability.
No.
No?
Halfway there.
Okay.
You should be using the example site and saying what looks different from my current site compared to the example site. And the 3 sections you need to do are the top intro section, the about section, and the contact form. And so
go ahead.
I would start there and go, okay, does my intro section look like the example site? If it does, great. Now I need to do the next section. The next section is my about section. Okay, I need to get the section appearing there. Okay, now I need to get the words in there. Now I need to get the words spaced out correctly. Now I need to do the background color, right? Going through those steps and saying, okay, I know what the end site looks like. I need to get mine to look like that, and going step by step that way. Right? And I know it feels like I just dropped you out of the nest, but when you're going into a job, you're not going to have a senior engineer saying, in order to get this done, you know, here's the step by step. You're going to have a mock-up, and your manager is going to say, make a site that looks like this, right? And so it's that overwhelming, but use the outline that we have linked. Use the example site, thinking through, watching me do it, and just go in. It's all line by line, right? Okay, add in my background color, add in my text color, get my padding working, getting things centered, going in step by step from there.
Yeah, I think I had missed the outline. I forgot we had the outline. So I'm like, okay. But yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Yep. And all of that is linked in the week 4, day 3 outline. So I've got the portfolio site outlined there. I've got the example site up there. Hopefully you've got a couple lifelines, and you've got me for the next 16 minutes, and then also in Slack. So as you're working on it, if you get stuck anywhere, let me know.
Will do.
I have a question. I remember it was something about the down arrow and making it so that aren't you supposed to be able to click it and then it goes down to the next section?
Yeah, so what you want to do is wrap the span tag in an A tag and then use an href.
I tried to do that.
Go ahead and share your screen. Let's take a look.
Okay.
While you guys are doing that, does anybody else need a breakout room or anything? Or any questions?
Even if you would like to rage at me about how mad you are that I'm not giving you this code, Ariel can take that venting.
I have a question about the easing part.
Yep. Let me help Christy, and then Larry, I'll circle back with you.
So this is green. So it's something there.
Yeah, you're missing your A tag is. So look at the order of your opening A tag, your opening span tag, your closing A tag, and your closing span tag.
So my A should be under my span.
Yes,
yep.
I'm still standing on it. I'm sorry. And the dasher is shopping for the stuff now.
Okay, now you should be lined up. Go ahead and save and see if that fixes your problem.
Shouldn't I tab the A over one?
If you just save, Prettier should do it for you.
Oh. Now
and if you scroll up a little bit, it's actually because your about section is scrolled. So scroll all the way to the top. So you can't see the about area. Yeah, and now click on the arrow, and it's going to scroll you down.
But then that's it? That's my about area?
So yeah, that's the next step that you've got to work on fixing, is getting your about to look like my about. But it's good progress. You got the A tag working, so that's good.
I have a question, Max. I'm sorry, when you're done.
One last thing. So this
Yep.
JS for life, we can change that to whatever we want it to be.
Yeah, I was just joking around with that. Whatever you would like that to be. I think Larry was actually up next, and then Tiffany, I'll come to you next.
Can I see how your second page is set up again?
So you should pull up the example website from the day 3 outline and look at the first 3 sections, the intro, the about, and the contact. That's where you should be modeling it off of. All right, Larry, what's up? Oh, you remuted yourself, sorry.
Okay, so far I got this.
Okay, it's looking good.
And now I know it's going in too fast because it doesn't have the ease in attribute. I don't know where to put it and what's the what goes in front of it. I thought you had it next to fade in.
The H1 I actually had set up to not have any delay on it because I wanted it to load the second the page loaded. So everything that you have there is actually correct.
Right, but it's when it's fading in, it's doing it fast. It's not doing it slow. So I know you had ease in.
Yeah, I only did the ease in. I don't think I did the ease in for the H. Oh, I did. I did a fade in, ease in 1 second. But if you just change your animation duration from 2 seconds to like 5 seconds, that should get the effect that you want there.
Right, but to do the fade in, ease in, where would I put that at and how would I do it?
I did that with the shorthand. I don't know what the longhand is for it. Give me 1 second to look that up. So that is animation-timing-function : ease-in.
Okay, so it wasn't connected right to the fade in. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I used the shorthand property for that, and that's why I was able to get the ease in so quickly. But that is, I will drop it in the live stream, and it is in the documentation that I linked to as well.
Okay, animation name, duration, time, and function. Okay, so if I use this top one right here, I would have been able to do it basically.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the shorthand that I did. And in my code, if you do use the shorthand, it's going to just be animation : fade in, space, ease dash in, space, and the duration. But you have it right because you're not using the shorthand. So that should get you what you want.
All right. Yep. Thank you.
No problem.
Why did it was Times New Roman or something? All right.
Yeah, there was a weird refresh going on there. It should be fine if you just hit the refresh button now.
I have a small, quick question.
Yep.
You know when you press go live and it brings your window open, what can I press in the top, like file, edit, selection, view, to bring it out that way?
So if you just swipe over with 3 fingers, that will switch you between your 2 spaces, 3 or 4 fingers.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then if you put your mouse up at the top, that's what will bring down the file again.
So like to open it in the browser?
Yeah, so like if you've got your browser in one space, or one desktop and virtual desktop and your code in another, you should be able to just use the 3-finger swipe to get back and forth.
Okay, thank you.
Someone else have a question that I cut off?
Tiffany was up next, I think.
Yeah, Tiffany.
Okay.
Sorry, had to find my unmute. Okay. I was trying to figure out, is it okay to share my screen?
No, I've had enough of you.
Horrible.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where my A ref is supposed to go.
Okay, so that is supposed to go around the span that has your arrow down. The bigger issue, though, is your arrow down isn't showing up in the first place.
Right. And okay, so let me kind of like make this a little bigger. So, okay.
So what's going on is you accidentally moved. So basically, this ID that you added, anything in that circle should actually be up on the line above it.
Ah, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna move this, like the whole thing, including the closing.
Yep.
Okay. And then it should go next to it.
Yep. And then delete out that closing span tag that it annoyingly added.
Right.
And then save that.
Okay.
And now go to your browser and see if you can see the arrow at least.
Oh, there goes the arrow. Okay.
So now your next trick is to get that ahref around the span tag.
And it goes around that, right?
Yep, that's the opening one, and then the bottom one is going to go at the end of the span, the closing span.
Okay, and what goes after the href? I'm sorry, I forgot.
That's what you're going to link to. So you're going to do a quote and a pound because it's going to link to an ID on the page.
Pound sign, and then it links to the about, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I got it. Thank you.
Yep. And then just don't close off your tag there for the A. So closing arrow. Yep. And then move that closing A tag to the end of the span, because basically what we want is that whole span tag is going to become the link.
Okay. So move it to the end of the span down here.
Yep.
Ah, okay.
And then just, yeah, that should do it. So save that and see if when you click on your arrow, it scrolls you down just a tiny little bit.
Thing. Okay.
Well, you're in mobile mode. I don't know if you mean to be. If you click out of that, over down here.
How do I do that? Oh, okay.
Now you're out of that mode.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Christy, I heard clapping. Is that self-celebration clapping? What I'm hearing is I dropped you out of the nest and you realized your wings are working.
Slowly but surely, yes, over here as well. They're like starting to pick up and move.
Remember that as you take mercy on me on the daily feedback form as well. I promise I have taught before there is a time where you just need to be set free and go, and this is one of those times.
So, can you tell me okay, I figured something out, but I just want to know what's next.
Yeah,
I got to go back to the...
Go ahead and share your screen. Let's see what you got. Unless you're saying you're caught up to what we did in class and you're wondering what's next after that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I don't want to go too far.
Okay.
So let me move that.
Yep, so you want to get a background color on your about section.
Okay.
And my about section is left justified. It's not center justified. But that's okay. If you want yours to be centered, that's completely fine with me. So what I did is I added padding to that, and I added a min height to my section.
Okay.
So those are the two next things. But if you want to keep rolling, the other part of the assignment is getting the contact section done as well.
Okay. So for the about, we really need to be thinking about a paragraph about ourselves.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
and that brings up a great point. This is your portfolio website that you guys are going to be using to get a job. So while it feels like an assignment now, I would encourage you to go back in and update it and think about, hey, if I'm going to use this portfolio site as my actual portfolio site that I'm going to publish on the web, that's going to be accessible when I go to myname.com, right? When I go to maxmatthews.com, what do I want to show up? And that's the point of this assignment, and why we're not only spending time on this today and tomorrow, but also going into next week, Monday and Tuesday, because we want this to be the spot where we can say, go look at our graduates, go look at the website and what they have built. And so that is the goal for this assignment. So yes, while it's great to put in your blah, 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 just to make sure things are laying out right, the goal here is that this is actually going to be a publishable website that we're going to drive people to.
Okay.
I normally would argue with Max just for the sake of arguing. However, I'm redoing my portfolio right now with you guys because I didn't take it that way, and I just did it as a portfolio piece for a different website I had. And here's where we are, because LinkedIn's only going to cover you so far. So get what you can on there and keep putting your portfolio pieces on it, because I'm still scheduling one-on-ones with Max to fix my portfolio now. So take advantage of all of this that you can, because he has a great layout for this year.
For the about section, should we do the same thing where we do section, no space, about, like we did with section intro?
Sorry, ask that again.
So remember the whole section intro don't have a space? Should we do section no space
about? Exactly.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yep.
I'm trying to set. Yeah, let me show, because I'm not sure what I'm explaining.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get these to show up like that, but I don't know how to do that.
Okay.
I looked up this over here, but I don't. It's not doing it.
Yeah, you're really, really close. That input type text needs to be its own HTML tag. It doesn't go inside of a div.
So, oh crap.
So just
do here?
Yep, an input type equals text. Quote text, yeah, you got it. And then that first name, we'll try that to start. So that got it in there. And then I used a property called placeholder equals, and then I put first name inside of that.
So here? Or?
Yep, placeholder equals. And save that, and take out your first name after that. And I think you're going to find that is doing exactly what you want it to.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Fancy. Don't worry if you come in tomorrow and you're like, I'm still really freaking lost. We're going to go over it. We're not going to drop you off the deep end and let you drown. We will pick you up. But doing your own attempt at this is really, really important to getting that engineering mindset down.
He keeps making analogies for like throwing you guys off the cliff and sending you out of the nest and letting you drown. But honestly, this is going to be probably one of the easiest things you can do right now, because when you see, it was so hard for me when I started here, but like when I got to the end for graduation and did a whole stack project for my capstone, like a full stack, you go, how the heck did I get this far? Like you look back at it and you go, oh my God, that was so easy. You'll get through it. I promise you'll get through it. He's going to throw you out of the nest and you're going to get back in it, and he's going to yeet you out of it again come JavaScript. And then you're going to get to Heroku and he's going to throw you out of it all the way to the sun. You will find your way back. If you're determined enough, you'll find it. And honestly, if you need any help, like I said before, I'm here. Max is here. Karen, Caitlin, you'll meet Nathan. You'll meet a bunch of people. You guys can do this. It feels overwhelming at first, especially on week 4. By the time you're in week 8, you're like, oh God, I want to go back to week 4. Oh God, I want to go back. You can do it. I promise.
Last chance for questions for this evening.
I just want to say I was crying when you said yeet, and then I do have a question about I feel like I should know the answer to this, but I just want to hurry and get out the way so I can know. So I'm over here in contact, and I am just trying to figure out why my class won't light up.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and share your screen. I'm not gonna give you the answers to syntax errors, but I am gonna hopefully tell you how to get in the right spot.
Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. So I'm right here. And I'm right here, I believe.
Your H3 headline. Yeah, everything looks right there. What are you saying is wrong?
So where's my, I'm just trying to figure out where my row goes. Does it go in here?
No. So it goes inside your section, but not inside the H3.
Okay.
Right, so the way I think about it is lining this up of this section is this section right here. And then this H3 is going to be this H3. And you notice that because this is indented another level, so is this. This is indented another level. But because this row and the H3 are on the same level, this H3 and the row that you're about to put in should also be on the same level.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I did not mean to do that. No, clear. So basically what I'm trying to say is the indentation of your outline should match the indentation of your code. So the row here, this row is not on the section, it's inside the section.
Okay, so but how would I put a row by itself?
The same way you've always used a row by itself. You create a new div.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
No problem.
I ask one quick question before we go.
Yep.
Please. On mine, I'm having a hard time with it just showing, just the top section.
Scroll up a little bit. Are you scrolled? Okay, so it's just that you're not scrolled up. So if you take out, you see in your URL it says the hashtag about.
Go ahead. Yes.
Go ahead and take out the pound about.
Oh
yeah, the Zoom is always a pain and gets in the way there.
Thank you. Okay.
So just take that part out, and when you hit enter now, it's going to just load the top part.
Okay.
And so what it does is when you click on that arrow down, that's when it adds the hashtag about to the top, and that's what actually gets the page to scroll down.
Okay, so there isn't a change of code or anything to when I bring up the page to just make it show the top section?
Nope. No, you just have to take the hashtag about out of the URL.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else for questions?
Yep, me, quick question. I can get my...
Wayne, I'll come to you next.
I'm sorry, my name to like stay...
Yep. So go to your CSS.
Direction.
And you've got your
center items.
That all looks right. Let's see what you're missing. I've got to look at my code. Each one. Fade in, opacity 0, your keyframes, your from and your to, animation fill mode, forward, 4 words.
Oh, 4 words. Okay. Oh, maybe that'll help me out a little bit in life. Let's see.
Hey!
Okay, now that I say that, So I copied and pasted the whole thing to my H3 for my future portion of the show.
Yep.
And it didn't.
Okay, so let's take a look at that CSS.
Okay.
And your intro, your H3. Do you have a capital I in your...
Probably not.
Mm-hmm. Nope, lowercase.
All right. My brain is like mush.
It's not like we're trying to teach anything complicated or advanced here.
Okay, so then I'll move that to a different speed instead of it being the...
Yeah, so you want to adjust the delay there, not the duration.
So I should add a delay instead of duration.
Correct. Yeah, it's going to be animation. Well, you still want to leave the duration in. You just want to add an additional one called animation dash delay, and then you can make that like 2 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Looking good, liking the purple, the plum. Larry, did you say you had a quick question?
Yes. Do we need to have like the about section, the container, the background that's around it, smaller than the whole width of the page, or
no? We'll get to that tomorrow.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, y'all. Bye.
Night.
Wayne, did you have a question, or are you working through it?
Nope, he's gone.
No, Wayne.
Question. Hold on, let me see if I can. How do I make this fill up this so it goes underneath both?
Great question. You are going to, let me just see your code again to make sure. Yep. You want to add a width colon 100% to all of your inputs.
So over here?
Mm-hmm. Just target anywhere in there. The bottom's fine. Just say input, curly brace, and then say width colon 100%.
Whoa. Okay. Thank you.
Good progress. All right, we're dwindling down in the numbers here. Last chance for questions.
Quick question, Max.
Yep.
And I cannot for me.
Hold on, Wayne.
Oh, I'm
Tiffany,
sorry.
go ahead.
So my name disappeared and I can't figure out how to get it back. I don't know if that even makes sense, but
it does. Go ahead and share your code. It's probably an animation property that you've got added by accident.
Okay. So
all right. Your intro, your forwards. Did you don't have your fade in keyframes?
Oh, okay. I do not. Nope, I didn't even add it yet. Is that why it's not showing yet? Okay. All right. That takes care of it then. Never mind, honey. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you did the animation name fade in, and then it's like, what's fade in? I don't understand how to fade in.
Oh,
and so that's what the keyframes is doing, is saying, hey, start at an opacity of 0, go up to 1, and that's what's going to add it in.
Okay. All right.
And that's going to be your whole from to and then opacity in there.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Wayne, you're up now. Sorry.
Can't hear you.
There you go, Wayne. You're good.
So I think I'm having a problem with this direction thing.
Okay.
Maybe some clarifications on it.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah. 1 second. Maybe I'm not getting the concept right.
Okay, so you're trying to get your about me in the right spot?
Mm-hmm.
So what we need to do there is use a justify content center.
That's what I did. And I changed it so many times that I see justify.
Okay. So before we can use our justify content center, we need to tell the whole thing to d-flex. And that's basically saying, hey, we're going to use the flex engine layout engine. So lowercase d-flex and save. And what you're going to find is that, okay, it's centered, but it's centered in the wrong direction, right? It's centering it in the center of the page. We want to center it vertically, not horizontally. And so that's when we're going to say flex dash column. Flex dash, yep, column. UMN. It's a weird word.
Okay.
There you go. Space, save. And now, nice and centered.
The thing is, guess what? I did that and it didn't look right to me and I erased it. Damn it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So the D dash flex like screws everything up because it's going in the wrong direction. So then we do our D dash, our flex column, which then gets it going in the right direction. And then we add in our center, which gets it vertically centered.
Okay. So I did have it, but it just didn't look right. And I'm like, is that supposed to be there?
You know it is. You got it right.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
The about and then the information in the about.
Yep.
My font sizes are 2 different sizes. How do I?
You just want to write your CSS selector and then have a font size adjustment.
But okay, so for the the paragraph will have a font size in the about okay. I got it. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.
Believe it or not, those are the questions that's why you're going out of the nest, right? Because those are the exact moments where you're going, oh, font size. Oh, a new CSS thing. I put those two together and I can do that, So that's...
I was sitting here for the longest time, like, why is the bottom part bigger than the top? Like, I'm like, what did I okay. I got it. Oh. More tea. Have a good night, everyone.
Last call for questions.
Good night.
Night.
All right, I'll see you guys. Have a good one.